gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
The original alternate here at F4WOnline.com. It is the Adam and Mike Big Audio Nightmare.
You can't imagine how much fun we have. Stop it there without a care to what you got to fear. Keep it all between your beer and your hockey gear.
Turn your radio up.
I can't believe that there's a nightmare on my street.
There. We're on the air.
Hey, Adam.
Yes, Mike.
Plenty of good seats available for the Cow Palace. Are you going?
I don't think I'm going to be able to make that trip out there, unfortunately.
How are you going to get your New Japan fill?
How am I going to get my New Japan fill? Probably through New Japan World, or maybe, just maybe, I'll get a tiny bit of a New Japan fill this weekend in Royal Oak, Michigan, and Villa Park, Illinois, better known as Detroit, Michigan, and Chicago, Illinois.
Do they have the same type of crime problems, or is this the suburbs sprawl?
This is the suburbs. This is the nice...
You get the good suburbs, not like Wilmington, Delaware, which is like a Philly suburb. It's no good there. You get the good suburbs out where you are.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Royal Oak is very nice. Villa Park is...
A fine beer too, if I recall correctly. I think I had a Royal Oak out of the UK. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it being good.
Well, there you go. I don't know that that's the same origin as Royal Oak. It's the Royal Oak Music Theater, actually, so it'll be a very interesting experiencing I wonder if it'll be akin to the IWA Mid-South show that I saw in Heron, Illinois, at like a community theater stage.
Heroin, Illinois?
Yeah, you probably are right there, but Heron, Illinois. So it's way down south, and I believe southeast. I want to say I was veering pretty close to St. Louis on that drive.
Aye. Wow, the Royal Oak Brewery is in Royal Oak, Michigan.
Well,
I'll be damned.
There you go. Maybe there's a post-show or pre-show visit that needs to be made there. But yeah, that's it's not quite the full New Japan roster that I'm sure will be at the Cow Palace. And I also don't were people really expecting that they were going to sell out the Cow Palace on day one of ticket sales with nothing announced? They sold something like 3,500, 4,000 seats the first day. That's bad.
Well, 3,300 is, I think, the number that we're going with right now. I don't know where they're at as far as what has been added onto this. Although I will say this, because I know Dave said that about the lineup too, and in the fact that Brian maybe it was, who knows, in the fact that they haven't announced one. But I don't know if that necessarily matters in this case. It's just the fact that it's the Cow Palace and the timing of it.
San Francisco, it's not out in the LA area.
They have not advertised it well at all. Maybe they don't think they need to, but let me tell you something. New Japan's advertising sucks. And if you're relying upon Access, which they don't seem to be doing any advertising for this show on, that would still suck. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. The fans of New Japan do a better job, a far better job at getting the word out than anyone related to New Japan, either in this country or over there, and that's not an insult to anyone. It's just that they don't know this market.
I don't know that I would agree with that the fans do a better job of promoting the company than the company does in Japan, but I would say that you're right.
Here?
Well, yeah, but you said here or there.
No, but I mean, but yeah. No. I did not mean there. Yeah, if I misspoke, I meant here. They by far do a better job of getting the word out. But I mean, as far as anybody from over there, because I'm not bashing the American office, quote unquote, or anything like that. It's those guys over there need to understand how to promote over here the same way WWE does in an India or a China or something like that, where we kind of mock them. I'm not saying I'm going to mock New Japan or anything like that, but when you have a show on Access that very few people have access to anyway, and you're not pushing the show hard on there, let alone anywhere else, I don't know what to tell you. And again, you decided to book the Cow Palace as opposed to, I don't know, a 5,000 seat building. You know you could sell 4,500 or 4,700, right? That was proven with Long Beach.
Yeah.
But then you jump to 10,000 in the Cow Palace, probably because you could get a pretty good deal, and it's a building with, you know, a name, you know, that is, you know, in wrestling lore, the Cow Palace is known. But, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot about this that's head-scratching, and it's way far off, and ultimately the show's quality is what's going to matter to me, because I'm not financially tied into it at all. But I do look at the advertising, and I wonder about this word not really getting out, not really being out there, and only a few of their hardest of the hardcores being energized. And, well, you know, I'm wondering when it's going to pick up here, because before you know it, it's going to be July 7th. I mean, we're already into May, and summer goes fast. You know, what you got? We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, and I can't say that I completely disagree with you. I still think part of it is, again, nothing at all has been announced. And I know nothing had been announced before for the other shows, but and to your point, this is San Francisco, this isn't LA. I think argument can definitely be made that the time to run a bigger building was and I know they went to a bigger building than they did before, but an even bigger building than that would have been, the second show in Long Beach. And, you know, I don't know. I guess the thing looking at this show and I guess we'll kind of touch on everything going on in New Japan right now as the gateway to this, the Cow Palace show, but I don't know where the big match that's going to draw everybody in is going to come from, in the sense that everything that I think we had looked at and thought maybe this would be the big match for the Cow Palace, all of that is on Dominion in about a month. I mean, everything that you could think of it, unless we're going to talk about Kenny Omega defeating Okada at Dominion, and then New Japan thinks that Kenny Omega defending the title against Cody Rhodes is going to draw 10,000 people to the Cow Palace in San Francisco. I don't know that I would agree with that argument. But beyond that, if the talk or a lot of the thought had been that if Jericho came back, they would do Jericho and Naito in the U.S., that's not happening. So, I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll have to wait until after Dominion, but at that point, you're 4 weeks out. And if you're relying on a mostly fly-in crowd, which I would imagine for San Francisco is even more, it would be even more necessary to get a close to full building than it is for the Los Angeles area, you know, time's going to be running short at that point. And you're going to have the competing aspect of whatever. We still don't really know what this all-in show is going to. I mean, we know it's going to be a show. It's going to be at the Sears Center in suburban Chicago, but we really don't know what that show is going to be. We really don't know exactly what's going to be happening there either, but that's clearly sucking a lot of the oxygen up in the room as well.
You know, Omega, Okada, Naito, and Jericho would look really good on top of that Cow Palace show.
Yeah,
and
it
would. You know
would.
what
I don't
my first
think you could
thought
do
was?
both, but doing one, I think, would make a lot of sense.
Well, I mean, Naito Jericho is the one I would do, to be honest with you, because, you know, with the title, you know, depending on what you decide to do at Dominion, it's either Omega coming here for a grand, you know, the grand ceremony in his first defense.
It has to be that, by the way.
North American soil, or, you know, it's Okada in a big match against somebody, and you come up with some sort of dream match, and then put underneath of it Jericho, Naito, and whatever you're going to do there. But the first thing, and I hate to say it, and I know they announced, you know, there must be a winner. I guess they announced there must be a winner, but no time limit and everything.
No time limit. So yeah.
As soon as he said that, it was like, okay, one wins one fall, one wins the other fall. How do you get out of that third fall and then you go ahead?
That would be
but
death.
that's the thing is you would never do that.
Well,
and
no,
boy,
it would be. I mean, that would be.
It's so transparent for the Japanese fans to just throw their hands up and go, like, I know you're doing this because you had the big show in America, but come on, you screwed us over here on the way out the door. And I can't see him doing that, but I would be a liar if I didn't say, I'm thinking of like, what Dory Funk, you know, Harley or, you know, whatever, that type of era where they would figure out some sort of creative way for the 10th time that they didn't want to change the title, but figured a way out of getting out of the match.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I can't fathom that they would do that. I think that would be promotional suicide of the highest order if they went ahead and did that. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. And the road to get there,
it's good for us, I can tell you that. I don't have a problem with
it. and when you look at, and I know it's been I think probably 3 weeks since we've done a show, and when you look at everything that's happened in New Japan since then, I mean, you really have to go back to the shows on the 27th and 29th of April. We're not going to get into every single match or really even do match reviews necessarily, but boy, has there been some interesting stuff. You go back to the show on the 27th, which you could make the argument that this, and I would have to go back and watch, I certainly don't think it was better than Tanahashi and Okada, but Hiroki Goto and Juice Robinson on the 27th, if that got lost in the shuffle for you, given the Champions Carnival, all the big New Japan shows, the website breaking pay-per-view that was Backlash, if this match got lost in the shuffle for you, go back and watch it. To me, this was the best Goto match, maybe since his run of matches with Shibata. Juice is just great. I mean, we talk about it all the time. He's just such a babyface in peril that makes great comebacks. People love him. His execution is great. My only complaint with this match is that I would have liked to have seen them finally pull the trigger on Juice getting a title here. Like, the crowd was so behind him in this match. Just dramatic. Nothing overly flashy, but just really, really, really well done and lived up to its expectations, which you can't necessarily say of the title match the following night. I guess before I go on to the next thing, any thoughts on that match, Mark? Because I have something else I need to talk about these two shows as well. And we apparently lost Mike Sempervive.
I'm right here. No, go ahead, talk.
Well, you were completely silent. I couldn't hear you.
That's because I was coughing and
All right. Well, regardless of Goto Juice, good.
No, I have nothing to add.
The other thing before we get to
God, I hate pollen.
Yeah, you are coughing due to your pollen allergies. I can barely keep my eyes open doing this show, not because I'm tired, but because I just have horrible, horrible allergies in springtime with my eyes. And so that's what I'm dealing with as we record this. But the tag team match, Kushida and Tanahashi against Ospreay and Okada on this show, again, if this kind of got lost in the shuffle for you, go back and watch this. I'm trying to remember, again, it wasn't like a 30-minute match, just 18, 15. This was an awesome tag match. Like this and the same matchup, again, on the 3rd, leading into the two singles matches on the 4th. They were just really, really good, well-executed tag team matches. Again, I mean, how would it not be with the 4 men involved? But just some tantalizing exchanges between Kushida and Okada, Ospreay and Tanahashi that really, to me, made you want to see high-profile singles matches on both of those ends. We can talk about the fact that even though I physically and stature-wise I don't really know that you can, the way things are set up in New Japan, but at a certain point, does Kushida have to go heavyweight, considering that he's done everything he could possibly do as a junior heavyweight and just kind of feels, not in-ring wise, but just booking wise, kind of stuck spinning his wheels, and he's so great. Like, he has to be, I don't know if everyone acknowledges, but he has to be the most underappreciated guy in New Japan, at least, I think, of this modern era. Like, he just turns out great match after great match, and I think just because he's always there, and every couple of years he gets his title run, people don't necessarily think about it.
Well, you know why? It's because he did not have early on especially, a dynamic list of opponents. That junior division was relatively stagnant, and it's just the work of the guys was always really good. And the tag division is somewhat like that too. I mean, the work was always really good. You liked the guys. There's, you could tout them and talk about them in the same way that we're doing now, in the same way that most people, and how they feel about them and how they speak about them. But it's not the most dynamic time right now. And so much other stuff has gone on that has been bigger. And it's picked up a lot for Kushida and the junior division. But, you know, by the time it picked up, it's kind of like, you know, he was there, but kind of forgotten about as we move towards the era of the Dragon Lees and Hiromu coming back and Will Ospreay and the evolution of those guys. I mean, it just kind of, he was in that funny kind of little period. And I don't know at this point. I get why he is a quote-unquote junior, but he's a 40-year-old guy who
Is he 40?
He's damn close, isn't he?
I thought he was like 35, but I could be...
I thought he was on the other half of it. So I was saying 36, around there, but again, pushing 40, we have seen this guy do... literally
he's
everything.
He's 34, by the way. He's got a birthday.
Is it only 30?
He'll be 35 in a couple days, May 12th. So he'll be 35 in a few days. And
what feels like 35 years in the business, because we've seen him fight in MMA. We have seen him act like a fool in Hustle. We have seen him grow in All Japan. We have seen him change characters and become a time traveler. We've seen him in an awesome tag team with. We've seen him
grow in New Japan,
so long, yeah, and it's like, I don't really need to see him in the junior picture. I would love to see him in the heavyweight picture, and I know it's crowded up there, but there's always room for tag teams, and there's always rooms for more functional tag teams, and there are so many guys.
Tanahashi as a regular tag team in the heavyweight division.
That's it, and with the way that New Japan's,
the Young Bucks are a heavyweight tag team.
Your guys in Team New Japan, I mean, him and Juice, when you don't have something going on with him, I mean, there's so many combinations where he would make things better, and I think you can do a lot more with him and focus upon let him be able to help you more. I want to put focus, but let Kushida help you more, and I think out of the junior division, I think he could do that, and I'd like to kind of see it that way. And you said it. Elgin, I know there's lots of guys who could team with Tanahashi and who do team with Tanahashi, but boy, a Tanahashi-Kushida team being the bane of the existence of the bad guys, especially the newer, younger ones, is great.
Oh, absolutely. And it's one of those things that, and granted, they've teamed before, mostly in six-man, so it's one of those things that sounded great on paper and even better in execution, in my opinion, in these two matches, the main event on the 27th and then the match on the 3rd as well.
Oh, by the way, let me just look at my choking fit earlier on. Hiroki Goto is great. Okay, maybe he's not great, but Hiroki Goto.
He's a pro wrestler.
I've always been in the tank for him, deep. He's going to be that guy. He's going to be that guy that people are going to be looking back on, and he's going to be a name. They're going to see him, in the title reigns. They're going to see matches with snowflakes next to it. But not as many as these other guys and everything. It's going to be like this Goto guy. And there's going to be somebody 20 years from now who, as there's going to be two idiots, probably on video or in hologram form at that point, talking about like how great Tanahashi was and Nakamura and how those young wrestlers today can't stand up. You don't know what it was like to live through Okada's reign. It was the most glorious thing ever. But some kid's going to discover Goto the same way I think probably I discovered Jerry Stubbs. And it's going to be like, God damn, this guy was, why didn't anybody give this guy any credit? Like, wasn't this guy any good? He's going to, I think, time is going to treat him better, I think, than like he lives in, the era he lives in today, because he's really good and he puts on good matches and against good opponents, which is what's going to last for eternity. I mean, he always usually holds up his end of the deal, especially against big bangers like Shibata and Suzuki and guys like that. But, he's just never going to get his due, and it's nothing against him now or anything like that. But that match against Juice was a reminder of how good that guy can be. And I know can be inconsistent and he doesn't have the same charisma and this, that, and the other, but he's just going to be that guy, because I have a feeling Evil's going to end up being a more enduring character, and there's going to be far bigger guys that come out of this era. But somebody's going to rediscover Goto one day and start putting up their DVD, VR, whatever it would be in the future list of great Goto matches.
Yeah, I was just, it's funny that last part, because I was just going to say, somewhere like the great-great-grandson of whatever guy from the Death Valley Driver message board decided that Mark Henry was the best wrestler in the world 10 years ago, that guy's great-grandson is going to make the argument that Goto was better than Okada or Tanahashi.
Well, Well, there's got to be, you need experience on both sides so we know where the middle is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He will be the hipster pick of people looking back like 30 years from now, just because someone will say no one else has said this, so I am going to. But no, I mean Goto again. He's a professional wrestler in a pro wrestling promotion.
Look at you! Look at it, not giving him the credit.
Well, he's fine.
Tenzan's like that.
He is.
You saying Tenzan's like that?
No, I mean I think Tenzan probably did more with less as far as like physical attributes than Goto did.
Oh, come on. That hair, Tenzan, come on.
See, the argument with Goto that I've kind of made after years and years and years where we talk about, just drop the ball with him, blah, blah, blah. When you go back and look at the beginning of his career, there was nothing that really... He was a good young lion, but he was never like one of the guys that from right away was like looked like he was going to be one of the anointed top guys.
He looks like a half of a tag team.
Yeah, well, and again, he's a good athlete, but he comes out of an era again of guys that like when they turn like Taguchi and him, like they to me at least were the outliers. When you look at like guys that actually seemed even early on like they could become really, really good pro wrestlers. Like there were a lot of guys back then that like the quality of guy that was coming through the system in like, I don't know, 2003, 2004, 2005, maybe even like a few years later than that. But the second half of the first decade of the 2000s, there's some slim pickings there. So I mean and that to me is going to be one of the other fascinating things as we kind of chart the journeys of all the young lions who are debuting at a pretty crazy clip. The caliber of athlete that they're bringing in, and we've talked about it before, over the last 5 years is definitely an improvement over the caliber of athlete of maybe the 5 to 7 years before then. So, a lot of his timing, a lot of his when you debut, what the situation is in the company. You can fantasy book and wonder, well, if young Lion Goto was coming along right now, where would he fit in? How much better could he be? Who knows?
Well, I buried New Japan advertising. I have once again crowned Kushida and also put Goto in his court. So if I can squeeze in something about being right about Nakamura so many years ago, I think I may have hit some sort of quad special or something like that. But
it may break the website is what you're trying to say.
Nobody's even going to hear this show.
Hey, I enjoy talking on the phone with you. I will say, I guess with Nakamura, that I've really been enjoying his Toru Yano impersonation. I haven't been, by the way.
I don't even, you know what? The less said about that, the better. AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura in a battle of kick ding dings is something. It's something else.
I think it's what we all thought of when after that amazing match at Wrestle Kingdom, we thought, man, if these guys ever get to go at it again,
hey, it's like, well, with WrestleMania. I mean, that had to be the pinnacle of the wackiness. Now we got Nakamura as a heel. We see him doing all this shisty stuff and shady stuff every week on TV. Backlash, I mean, it only makes sense, right? No.
No. Speaking of matches between two guys that we would think would have been great and ended up being far from that. The main event of the April 29th New Japan show, Minoru Suzuki defending the Intercontinental title against Tetsuya Naito. What the hell was this?
Hey,
I've seen people try to defend this.
Oh, well, here, you know what? Because I am not as in tune to the scene as sometimes maybe I should be as far as Scuttlebutt goes. How was it possibly being defended? What was what were some of the one-liners off of that?
I don't know about the one-liners, but just that it was just a struggle. It was an epic fight. It was...
Oh, for real? They're not even like saying like dude was sick or something? Like
no, they were. It was just like to me. It was just like take everything that made Suzuki Okada dramatic, take all the drama out of that, and then you just basically are left with Suzuki just beating the hell out of Naito being beyond uninspired, and then just like just slapping the hell out of Suzuki, hitting the Destino, and then it's done. Like, it was just, I was sitting there watching, you just kept waiting for it to get into, I don't even want to say another gear, because that implies that it got into a gear to begin with, but it just never did. Outside of, again, the slap exchange, like, that was the only compelling thing about this match.
And that may not have been the best idea in the world from how it looked off of either one of those guys, frankly.
Particularly Minoru.
Oh, yeah.
He got knocked a little loopy. He still didn't look right later in the week than the tag matches, at least on the third, to my eyes. But Naito, and it was weird too, because with Naito, it didn't look like he was dealing with an injury. It just, I don't know, this was a rather mercurial performance by Tetsuya Naito. It looked to be, again, maybe the man was sick. Maybe the man was entirely unenthused about being crowned the Intercontinental Champion again. But this was...
To be honest with you, Adam?
What?
I'm even going to give him credit because he has got no reputation for this whatsoever.
No.
And if he was sick or injured, to be real honest, we won't know that probably for a long time.
Yeah.
Because he's been very good at keeping a lot of things close to vest, and they've been very good about that with him. So if it's that, we won't know. He could have just had a bad night, and it happens to everybody, and it happens sometimes at the most inopportune times. But for all of the reasons you have mentioned, for all the reasons that have been said online by people in their opinions about this match, it was a horrible time to have it because of the story that they have already built. And it was just
so good. The build-up to this was so good. Everything with Suzuki and Naito, and slowly building to it, and then just Naito just driving Suzuki crazy. Like, everything on the tour, it was so good. And then just, again, I know things happen, and so, you know.
And the biggest problem is, it's like people, well, it's bad for, it's really Naito, no, because.
It's bad for Suzuki.
Well, that's the thing. He won, no. It did hurt Suzuki. It doesn't hurt him. But as far as if you keep tight to the character and to the stories of these guys, it was crappy because not only did he lose, like we mentioned, he got knocked out, at least momentarily. He was at least jarred very badly, by one of those shots. And it was like, you could tell, like, 2 in, that it's like they are up high on these shots. They're up way high. This is not
these are not chin shots.
This is not chin tucked in, which, look, your chin's out, your head's up, worst place you can get hit. Your chin's tucked, your chin's in, you're still getting slapped by a large man who hits hard, but, you take it a little bit better. But they just hit, and it was like, the shot, you could see it immediately on Suzuki's face, and it was just not a good night. And let's hope that was it, and that's over and gone. But that's the one that later on we have to explain what happened here. That's just what happened there. And look, I doubt Naito was fucked up. So it's just why it happened. Who knows why it happened? But unfortunately, it did. And I'll have, because it's New Japan and because it's pro wrestling, you can continue to write your own story. So even though this book or this chapter ended pretty badly, you still got time to write up another one, before it's all said and done. So at least we got that.
Oh yeah, and it was. I mean, I will say at least it was. Saying that I was heartened is the right way to describe this, but watching the match, the finish felt very, very abrupt, and then finding out later, obviously through Dave that. And what was reported, that they went home about 10 minutes early. It certainly felt like it. And granted, that I did not need to see 10 more minutes of this match, but that was as abrupt and anticlimactic of a finish as I can recall in a big New Japan main event.
And that's nothing flowed well. And the fact of the matter is, if 10 minutes would have went by, I know we would have gotten a little bit of a run and a little bit more. You get that close there, but I don't think it would have mattered. I mean, it would have had to be, because again, like you mentioned, they never really even got into a gear. No. And I mean, it was, for those guys, that was a average match. So even if they put it into gear, by the end, could you have really called it good? I don't know. The best you could say was it would have been an average match with a good ending. Instead, it was an average match with an abrupt bad ending.
Yeah. Well, I almost feel like, and I know we've got other New Japan stuff to get through, but watching this match, it made me think of some of the things that we used to talk about with Noah, and I guess you could still kind of talk about with Noah sometimes, that like every big match doesn't necessarily need to go 30 to 40 minutes. And to me, this is one of those where you look at it, and there was absolutely no reason really for it to even go 30.
Well, Dragon Gate too. I mean, all of them suffer. And I know you want to give us our money's worth, and I appreciate that many a time, but you're exactly right about that. Sometimes give me 18 great instead of 32 with a build-up. And I know that sounds ridiculous and kind of anti what, I would usually preach, but I think anybody listening to this show, I think you're pretty a concentrated group. I think you know what I mean.
Well, and if that's what you're looking for, I've got a company for you, and it's called All Japan Pro Wrestling. That's the jumping off point that I want to get to with this, is that it's been really refreshing. And I've been following All Japan, obviously, but with the advent of the All Japan streaming service and being able to watch all the shows and even go back and watch rewatch or watch some of the stuff over the last couple of years that's up on there, there's something to be said for a company that every main event doesn't necessarily have to go 30. Like, yeah, okay, the Champion Carnival final went 24-49. But how many times have you seen, Joe Doring in a big match and it's like sub 10 minutes, or you see some of these Akiyama matches, or some of the other very hossy matches with Ishikawa or like Yuji Hino in this tournament. Not everything needs to be 40 minutes long. Not every show needs to be 4.5 hours. I mean, the Champions Carnival final, that show, with an intermission, I think it was like 2 hours and 20 minutes. 6 matches, but I didn't feel shortchanged at all. The final, which was amazing, Naomichi Marufuji defeating Kento Miyahara in 24-49, which reigned in my mind as my personal match of the year for about 5 days until Okada and Tanahashi. But you had that. You had a 6-man tag that was awesome that went like 18:42. And then the rest of the stuff was pretty damn short. You don't necessarily always need the long match just for the sake of it, or at least, and I know they did the one thing, whatever it was, a year and a half ago in New Japan, where Hiromu beat Kushida in like 2 minutes, and you'll get the flash spin here and there in
the Liger special.
Yes, exactly, the Liger special and the Best of the Super Junior. But outside of that, you really don't, that you're really going to be settling in for a while. And there is something to be said for All Japan, both in terms of the fact that you don't necessarily know that a match is going to be going that long. And the other thing that, and I'm not down on New Japan, obviously. I'm as much of a New Japan, if people want to say apologist, as you'll ever find. I think if you've spent any time listening to the show, you'd know that. But man,
it's only been, 15 years?
Getting there.
Right. Remember when nothing was happening there?
Yeah, nothing's going on in Japan. That's what people told me. But All Japan, the other thing that is so nice, it's just a really nice change of pace to not have to worry about a bunch of interference.
Yeah.
Like, you're watching 2 guys, you're watching a tag match or a 6-man tag, you're really excited about it, and you know that the last thing you're ever going to see is some convoluted spot that's going to knock Kyohei Wada out of the ring for like 4 guys to jump in and do a bunch of interference. I can honestly say right now, and granted, it is talking on the board a little bit about it, depth-wise, All Japan's roster can't hold a candle to New Japan, but right now I'm enjoying All Japan at least as much as I am New Japan. I don't know how long that'll last. They're doing something right. I mean, the tournament itself, the dog days of the tournament, the early to mid part of the tournament, a lot of small buildings, not really that big of crowds, which that's fine. But man, you had 3 nights in a row that were sold out or damn near sold out. I'm pretty sure they were actually all sold out at Korakuen Hall. You had good crowds in Nagoya, I believe a good crowd in Osaka as well. And you just, you had guys bringing it throughout the tournament, and just a lot of variation as far as what goes on. But the one thing, again, that you're not going to get is just a lot of bullshit as far as interference. So it's definitely talked about it over the last few shows. It's a breath of fresh air. If there's things about New Japan that are annoying you right now, and you need a bit of a palate cleanser, I again make the argument that All Japan is probably where you should go get your next proverbial meal.
I can talk about how New Japan, I don't think, is reaching out to as many fans as they can here in the States and making the best use of any advertising budget that they may have, but that's their business, and it doesn't really affect me because I'm already here. So when it comes to in-ring, if I had to bitch about something, and I'm not going to, but since you brought it up, I will just reiterate and raise my hand here that I am all for stopping the amount of ref damage,
yes,
outside interference, and all of that other stuff, because it's unneeded. It's not special anymore.
You have the best roster,
it's annoying, and
maybe
I know
ever, and you rely on those sorts of tropes.
Yeah, and I know what it is, and I'm going to channel Brian here. It's heat. Talks about how WWE does dumb things like beat people in their hometown all the time for heat. And this is a New Japan Gato one. Heat. Yeah, it gets heat. It also is unneeded. It's not special anymore, and it's overdone. And doesn't probably matter what I say, but I would be remiss, since you mentioned it, that I once again line up behind that. Somebody to get the word back that it is way unnecessary and really over the top at this point. And like you say, when you watch Dragon Gate or All Japan right now or Noah or anywhere else, nobody does this, and there's a reason why.
Well, I guess the devil's advocate would be, well, New Japan's the one that's doing it, and New Japan's the one that's doing the best business, but I think there's a way
that's WWE stock price excuse.
Oh, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying there's an argument there to be made. I think that there's a middle ground to be had. I don't think that a Gato Books company is ever just going to be a straight up traditional Japanese wrestling company as far as it's booked, and I don't necessarily need that either. But I just think the main programs on this tour outside of Naito and Suzuki, which all that was great. I have no complaints about the build up to that at all. But you think about how, again, I use the phrase a breath of fresh air, but you had Okada and Tanahashi, you had Ospreay and Kushida, you had the 2 tag matches with those 4 guys building up to those matches, and you knew going into that, just because of the guys involved, that you weren't going to be dealing with any ref bumps, you weren't going to be dealing with any interference. And boy, was it nice, just like, again, watching the Champions Carnival over the last month, to just be able to watch that and not really have to worry about it. I guess we've touched on it in passing, but we really need to touch on it in full. The greatness of the main event on May 4th, Okada and Tanahashi. I was watching that match live before I had to go.
A carnival match out there.
Well, no, there's plenty of carnival matches that throw out there. I could talk for hours about Marufuji and Miyahara and how great I thought that was, and how we said the parallel before, but it's just watching this tournament. So I guess I will talk a little bit All Japan here. Watching this tournament.
Yeah, let's take that crown that I gave to Goto early on. Let's put it on Miyahara, because with Shingo and you're talking about with Marufuji, hey, it's a good time right now to be Kento Miyahara.
Well, yeah, and what he's done, he is the Hiroshi Tanahashi of that promotion. He has taken, and there are a lot of other really good performers in that company, just like there were in New Japan. But what he has done, both in terms of in the ring, how he connects with the fans, is how much he, after every show, is out there going around the ring, high-fiving everybody in the crowd. Again, it reminds me so much of Tanahashi, and there's a great picture of the two of them from a couple of weeks ago just hanging out. But Miyahara is so damn good, and he is again. It's I guess you look at Akiyama. He's the older guy there. Obviously, he's the guy who's running the place, and everybody loves him. But it feels like Miyahara is the first guy in All Japan that has that same sort of emotional, or engenders that same sort of emotional reaction from the crowd that the top New Japan guys do from their fans. And it's something to see. I don't know how far they'll be able to take it, but like he is the real deal, and that company is, again, they're not a threat to New Japan by any means at this point. But when you look at what they've done over the course of the last couple of years now, like, it's not an insignificant story. And I know Dave talks about it, and I'm glad that he does, but I feel like it really still does get lost in the shuffle a little bit when you look where that company was. Well, first off, when Muto took it over, and then by the time that Muto was done with it, I mean, it was not in good shape. Went through a couple iterations of ownership before where it's at now. And they have just slowly but surely built it back up by, again, you've got a guy in Miyahara who is your prototypical modern ace top guy in a Japanese promotion. And you've just surrounded him with, whether it be contracted guys like Jun Akiyama or guys like Joe Doring, or then, you get extended runs out of, short black trunks version of Shuji Ishikawa. You bring in a Shingo in this tournament. You've got, mixing up with guys like Yuji Hino, or, I mean, again, did anyone ever think, maybe, I don't know, outside of Joe Gagne, that, like, Zeus and the Bodyguard would play, like, a starring role in a viable, I don't know,
I honestly thought their hearts would have given out by this point, just because they give so much to pro wrestling, obviously, yes. Not for any blown up type of features and such.
Like, the Bodyguard is not good.
No, he's not. But in that team
good,
he is.
But he's great.
He's
not good.
He's not good, but he's great.
His match with Akiyama was awesome. Like,
it's throwback.
He sucks,
ridiculous.
But he's awesome.
Yeah. Look, it's not.
Like, his match with Doring earlier this year was great. Like, I don't know.
This is not an apples to apples comparison, I know, but this is like if 911 was extended out and could work matches at least for a few minutes. I mean, like, that's like the Bodyguard is Zeus, but especially the Bodyguard.
Well, maybe even more Zeus, honestly. Maybe I'm thinking Zeus more than the Bodyguard. Both of them. As a tag team, Zeus as a single. Zeus's match is what I was referring to with Akiyama, where he just beat the hell out of Akiyama with chops and Akiyama with the low kicks, but both of them.
And at least he's younger, though, at least a little bit of hope. Bodyguard can only actually get worse work-wise.
Well, yeah.
And it's like, even that, he's the sideshow, he's the cartoon, he's the guilty pleasure, and I don't know what the view of those two guys is like over there exactly, but I know what it is amongst mostly English-speaking fans, and it is the ultimate guilty pleasure. That's what those guys are. It's like Strongman, except you can get more out of them.
Oh, no, exactly. And it's funny that you mentioned 911, and I'm going to make a comparison here that is not going to seem like it makes a whole lot of sense, because the two promotions bear almost no resemblance to each other as far as stylistically. But All Japan is, in some ways, it reminds me of ECW in the sense that, like, you've got a lot of guys that, when you first look at them on the card, you're like, what is this guy doing here? Like, I'm not looking forward to this. But everybody is being used to the best, or maybe even beyond the best of their abilities. I mean, I sat there and watched quite a few Yoshitatsu matches over the last month, and I enjoyed them. Like, and I don't know what to make of that. Or again, Zeus and the Bodyguard. Or
it's a sideshow.
But they're also, like, the matches are good.
Yeah, well,
and it's so troubling to me.
Hey,
like,
Jun Akiyama's there, for heaven's sake.
Jun Akiyama right now is amazing. Like, he was so great in this tournament.
Just a good foreman.
He was, I mean, the thing with Akiyama that I will always have a hard time getting past is, like, he will just have absolutely getting his ass handed to him. But man, that guy is always concerned about pulling up his trunks even though they haven't fallen down.
Hey, Misawa, you learn from the best, buddy.
Oh, absolutely.
Wipe your face, pull your trunks up.
Yeah, so he doesn't bother with the face wipe, but man, there's an art to like selling like your near death, but also getting those trunks pulled up. But beyond that, Akiyama is just not that he was ever like I don't want to say he's having a career renaissance because he was never bad in the ring, but he's just so good right now, and he's so much fun to watch, and just the different guys that they have him mixing it up with, like the 6-man tag on the final night with Akiyama, Doring, and Hino versus Zeus, a nearly immobile due to injury bodyguard, and Shingo Takagi was just awesome. And like watching Akiyama mix it up with Shingo and the crowd's reaction to that, as we talked about before, Joe Doring with the best Stan Hansen tribute act that will ever happen. I don't mean just in a single match, but just as a wrestler. Just a lot of good stuff. And
got hungry young
the idea
guys.
that Suwama is winning matches with a fucking reverse chin lock, and it's great. He's just wrenching. The Suwama Jun Akiyama match in this tournament was just awesome. And it was just basic dudes not liking each other, and then a win from a reverse chin lock. And then I think, and I'll let you take it from there, but as you were starting to say as well, they're doing a good job building up the younger guys. Nomura in this tournament, Tubby Proto-Taue was awesome in this tournament.
Well, that's it. And it's just, I was just going to make a comparison, like the ECW feel, and it is, you can attach it to everybody or attach it to any promotion, but it's like, you got Akiyama there who, like in a way like a Paulie. Everybody knows who he is. He's got an established reputation. I'm not comparing them business-wise or personality-wise or anything like that, but it's like, there's your boss. And you got some hungry youngsters. You got some veterans. You got some has-beens. You got some never-weres. You got your outlaws from DDT and Big Japan. If you want to, your guys that float in like that. I don't, who you would equate
random
that.
wayward sons like Yoshitatsu.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, guys like that who were supposed to be's and then had an embarrassing situation on a big company and then had another embarrassing situation in the other big company and now he's in Japan. And it's like just that mix and things are humming for them right now. And obviously everybody's kind of behind them right now. They became the thing with the streaming service rolling out there, and they're kind of everybody's baby right now. But at least they're living up to their end of the deal. And I don't know,
absolutely.
For the most part, I have not heard too many issues when it comes to the streaming service, which frankly there shouldn't be, considering I don't think. Nobody's thinking there's any DDS or whatever the fuck they are attacks taking place on the All Japan website. They don't have that many members attached to it, but everything seems to be going good right now. And again, good on them. Now they're going to have to try to maintain some of this because I have a feeling Dragon Gate is coming for them as far as being something that takes people's attentions. The reason I say that, their streaming service is coming out. They've got a new group over there.
The whole China situation.
And that's it. I mean, we've got stables changing, but the biggest thing is going to be how flashy this whole situation is with these Kung Fu guys, literally. And the whole deal with...
Well, they're serious about it. Dragon Gate is serious about it. This isn't just dip your toe in the water.
No, you don't send T-Hawk and Lindemann and SEMA and send them and say, you're going to be working out of Shanghai now. You're not going to be on as many shows. And Yamamura's over there with them as well, too. Yeah. And you're going to continue to go build this stuff. And Toru Kido is now going to run, I guess, he's the day-to-day, he's the boss of day-to-day operations, but their expansion and this guy, what's his name? Gao Jingjia? I know I'm butchering the name, but he was one of the kids that appeared on the show a couple days ago. He is going to be, I guess, the focal point of that OWE promotion, that ran the Legend of the Dragon card in February that apparently people are just making video files and GIF files out the rear end about, because these are guys who are being trained certainly in that great Dragon Gate style, but even better as a part of this generation where it looks like if you like Ospreay, if you like Hiromu and Dragon Lee and those types of guys, you are going to love these dudes because they all look like they weigh about 130 pounds, but can hit you from any angle and jump up in the air and stay there for about 35 seconds and hit you with 28 moves before they hit the ground. They may have something there that is going to bring Dragon Gate into the future. But even before they get there, even if they're just attached to what Dragon Gate's got going on with the streaming service, once they get that thing out and rolling, it'll be interesting to see what happens, because it's been a little bit quiet, I think.
Yeah. Well, low key, that could be, and I don't mean the former Caval, but that could low key be one of the biggest stories of the year and one of the biggest stories to look out for going forward, in that no one has really successfully broken into the Chinese market in a major way. And this is a situation where it's not just trying to break in, but this could be a scenario where Shima and Dragon Gate, they're actually creating the scene there and are creating what will be the predominant style of pro wrestling in China. So it really is a fascinating thing to watch. And yeah, I have not yet subscribed to the streaming service. I've heard some issues as far as like shows are up and they're up for a week and then they go away, and it has something to do with TV rights deals, and so I still haven't fully sussed out the multiple tiers of the setup there as well. So yeah, it and I guess just you were talking about, interest-wise, Dragon Gate coming for All Japan or other people coming for All Japan. The thing that's going to be the most important thing with All Japan going forward, and we draw the parallel all the time to what happened to Pro Wrestling Noah, it's not going to just be the fact that you've got this great mix of guys on top with Miyahara and the rest. You've got relationships with other companies, so you can bring in Marufuji. You can bring in Shingo. You had a long run with Shuji Ishikawa in the company. But what's going to make this sustainable or not, it's the same thing that ended up determining whether, a slight resurgence in the early 2010s for New Japan was actually going to lead to something more. It's all going to come down to how dedicated, how committed are they to developing young talent, and do they have the ability to attract the right people to do that, to fill those roles. And right now, it's still early returns, and I'm not saying these guys are athletically to the caliber of the guys that have been debuting in New Japan over the last several years. But you look at guys like Nomura, who's awkward as all hell, but really good in the ring, and the crowd is absolutely buying into him and loving him. This tournament did a lot for him. You also look at Yusuke Okada, who is very, very good for as early on in his career as he is. So those are the guys that, and the other guys that are coming through, at the same time or behind them. That's what's going to determine whether this is a blip on the radar and a nice little story, or whether we're talking about this 5 years from now, as, oh man, this is when All Japan really established themselves as, a company that could end up being a solid, real, legitimate number two. And I obviously say that with the asterisk of, Dragon Gate being Dragon Gate and kind of being off on its own deal, being successful always, and that's just sort of what they are. But outside of that, All Japan has a real chance here to establish themselves as being a thing going forward.
Basically a non sequitur. I know you're really surprised, but you know what? I'll tie it together with Dragon Gate. Can you imagine, and let's rewind for a moment, Kento Miyahara, can you imagine if he would have been a Florida brother?
Well, yes.
Never was a Florida brother, but can you imagine if he would have been, or something? Can you imagine if he would have been the one to get hurt? And who was it, Okita? Who was the one who blew out a testicle?
Yeah,
because that was it. Like somebody had
the guy that had the football background that was fiery and did the shoulder blocks and everything, and yeah.
That may have been him, but imagine if times would have changed from this, and let's see how it goes. Nakajima's had a very good career. A very, very good career, and no one can...
He's had a good career.
That's it. Nobody can badmouth it. It has been good.
When you look at that guy, when he first debuted, I would have bet anything that he would have been the guy that would have been the ace of a company. Again,
everybody
was different things are the reason.
Everybody said that. Look, his God, at 16, again, much less than what you saw at 20, and as he started getting older and mature, and the only thing that hurt him, I guess, in some ways, was not kind of being out there and in the mix more, but it's not like it hampered him at all. But when it gets right down to it, it'll be interesting to see as All Japan grows and changes, and as the business in Japan changes too. Obviously it's still not easy to jump from place to place, and we'll probably get into that with Taiji Ishimori too. because there's something to be said possibly about some of the moves that he maneuvered himself into to end up getting to New Japan. But, you know, if we start seeing a difference in the scene over there where, you know, Miyahara's spot isn't, we don't exactly know what's going to happen. And he could float around for a long, long time. And you never know where he could end up. And you never know what the mentality is going to be like for New Japan. Obviously, it's train your guys, use your guys first. But now more than ever, we have seen guys go in and out of promotions and reinvent themselves and refuel themselves. And my God, we've seen what happened with like Honma and with guys like Ishii over in New Japan. You know, can you imagine a Miyahara or somebody like that coming in there a little bit down the line?
I mean, I could have, in a fantasy booking way, I could imagine it. I think that, and again, I think obviously the money is nowhere near the same, but I think much like New Japan is absolutely committed to doing whatever they have to do to keep Kazuchika Okada in the company at all costs. I think All Japan will do the same thing with Miyahara. I don't.
Oh, that's true, but that's right down to loyalty, though, because you know without loyalty, and that's it, and without wanting to do it, like All Japan can't keep him.
Yeah, I don't see any. Well, I don't want to say I don't see any scenario, but I don't see a plausible scenario at this point or any time in the foreseeable future in which Miyahara will leave what he has going there. I just don't see it.
Now, it's easy
I just don't see it culturally. I just don't see the way the scene is, and I think that.
Or if he does go out of there, does he just go to a DDT or a Big Japan as opposed to a New Japan?
I would be surprised, honestly. I mean, I think he'll farm him out from time to time, maybe, but I don't see that. I don't know. I don't see that happening. I think that they have rightly identified him as the guy. I think that he knows that he's the guy, and I think just everything you see with him, to me, leads you to believe that, again, much like Hiroshi Tanahashi, 13, 14, 15 years ago, I think that he sees this as his project, and I think he sees his identity as a pro wrestler inextricably tied with All Japan. I could be completely mistaken, but that's my read on it, and, I think the only question is just how far will he be able to take it? And again,
how far All Japan is able to take it, really?
What's that? Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. If the story here does not end up actually being a parallel to Tanahashi in the sense that, like, okay, let's say that where All Japan's at right now, this is as far as this little renaissance that they have going on. This is as far as they're able to take it. Maybe 3, 4, 5 years from now, maybe things get stagnant and things change. But I don't know. I just have a hard time seeing that scenario of him going elsewhere. I have a real hard time seeing that happening.
I hope that the scene opens up a little bit more. And what made me kind of think about that was, was it Joe? I think it may have been Lanza who tweeted. I can't remember who tweeted it initially about bringing up the theory that it was Ishimori just kind of pushing the WWE thing. So he could basically let everything expire and he could head into New Japan without really any bad feelings, so it didn't look like he jumped promotions. And, I don't necessarily believe that is the case. I don't know if exactly what went down there. I wouldn't have thought that would be his end game. But
it's not like he's even a true-born Noah guy anyway. Like, I mean, it's not like he was a trainee there. And then,
no, but I can understand,
Can anybody hold a grudge against anybody for leaving Pro Wrestling Noah in 2018?
Yes, because people always hold bad feelings over everybody forever.
Well, yes, that's the world.
Leaving jobs.
The
internet, nobody knows, and, it was brought up later on, about, like, somebody mentioned, like, Sonata, where it's like, it's nice probably for guys like that who do feel a certain sense of loyalty or feel pressured to maybe not make a move because, we've seen that with plenty of guys who probably should have gotten out from underneath their sensei's wings there a little bit and never pulled away, to go explore more on their own, that if this makes it easier for a guy to kind of skip in from promotion to promotion, I'm all for it, because I would love to see the way everything is so fractured there anyway, with so many promotions and so many guys wanting to run their own shows and all that sort of stuff, that we just don't get more movement between these companies, basically with the exception of New Japan. But even New Japan using and utilizing these other companies more to do, again, not for necessarily the best of the Super Juniors anymore, because you want to use your guys from CMLL and from Britain and from America and all that stuff. I got that. But like, for some of the other stuff, like, use Kaiji Tomato again. Use, again, yeah, that's a guy, but I'm just saying, like, that type of thing, do that more, because all these young guys that New Japan's got coming up, and yeah, you want them in the mix and everything, and yeah, I'd like to see them, but they're going
to have to wrestle somewhere. There's only you can't do 15-match cards.
That's it, and I don't want
to farm some guys out, whether it be the older guys or whether it be the younger guys.
And it makes the scene better, it makes everything better, and I know they probably won't do that, but man, it's nice to have that pipe dream.
Yeah. Well, and kind of along those lines, how about for long-time people who have followed the scene, long-time listeners of this show, how about the imagery on the Champions Carnival final night of Naomichi Marufuji coming through the entranceway with the All Japan logo in the background on the curtain, and a fan holding up a big Pro Wrestling Noah flag right next to him.
That was pretty cool. I saw that.
That's some imagery. I mean, I know Noah is just a flickering ember of what Pro Wrestling Noah was. All Japan really isn't what All Japan was, as far as, just you can't. It's hard to really draw a through line from that company to what it was in the 90s. But still, just it's not quite Bischoff and Hogan, or Bischoff and Vince McMahon hugging on the stage on Monday Night Raw years ago, but it's not that far off, just as far as things you didn't necessarily expect to ever see.
That is true.
I guess the other thing, and this will be the segue to talking about the May 3rd and May 4th New Japan shows quickly, but just imagine, I guess there's a few different ways to go with this, but just imagine current modern All Japan of the last year or two with the current modern Sonata. And just imagine Miyahara and Sonata as the top two guys in All Japan, and how great that would be. That would be awesome. And then the other thing is,
Kushida in there too. You want to do that? And
I would take that. But beyond that, again, just for like all the speculation that we do on this show and that everyone does on every show, for all of that, you also have no idea what the hell is going to happen. If someone would have told you 10 years ago that the top two guys in the top two promotions in Japan were going to be Kazuchika Okada and Kento Miyahara, would anyone have bought that?
I'm still tripping off, like, would you think Pete Dunne would be holding a WWE title and wrestling on, like, Progress shows? Or
Well, yeah, there's so many, or the fact that TNA footage would just be casually thrown in at the end of a random table for three or whatever it is on WWE Network. Like, there's so many weird things about the wrestling industry right now. Good things for the most part, but just weird.
So what a time in flux. It's an interesting time, and coming on, and I just want to say just shoehorn this in coming off Backlash. It's like, WWE, the guy that reviews theater for the New York Times is not reviewing movies, is not reviewing opera. They have separate people to do all of those things, and it's like, can we just put WWE in a separate category where I can just completely put it in its own little bubble, because I have got to figure out a way where I need to kill, bury a zillion times over my pro wrestling sensibilities, because it just now more than ever, as long as they are relying on TV money and all of that stuff, like, you can't compare them. It's just that you have to look at them and go, you cannot add any logic to it. You have to look at it with WWE logic, which completely will burn out your brain for anything else, where it's like, God, can it be separate and have that over there and almost have everything else in the world taking place? You could talk about all of that in one, little lump, but regardless, it is an amazing time. It really is. All the streaming services, all the options, all of how intergender is changing and how just everything, how we are in a big flux period, how we view it, how we see it, how these companies view each other, and obviously WWE is still going to be, the overriding demon of everything. But it's like, right now they're still working with Progress. Their programming could still pop up on their screen. Who else in the States here? WWE, it's just, all of this it's a hell of a time. And now that by the way, BN, you have access to BN. Are you there?
Yeah, you cut out for a second.
Do you have access to BN?
I do not, but they did just upload the first 3 episodes of the MLW TV show to MLW's YouTube page, and I was actually watching a little bit right before we started recording. And oh man, is it a trip to hear Tony Schiavone calling ACH versus Austin Aries.
Tony Schiavone, God, I miss Tony.
Oh, it's great. It is so cool. Like there are so many just weird, fun things about the wrestling scene right now. And again, it's juxtaposed with the industry leader being more stagnant and boring and uninspired from a booking and production standpoint than maybe any time since the, 92, 93 time period as far as for WWE. But I think part of it, like you said as well, is just you have to take it for what it is. WWE main roster, it is a TV show. And to me, it is a TV show in the same vein as, take your pick of when we were younger, a show like Melrose Place or Beverly Hills 90210 or those random shows that are on like the CW or like whatever they call ABC Family now, where it's just sort of throwaway bubblegum entertainment that has some characters that people might be interested in. You could drive a semi-truck through the plot holes.
Are you demeaning the middle? I won't let you do that.
Is the middle a show on ABC Family? I'm talking about like random shows on ABC Family, like I don't even know. Like stuff like that just, it exists, people watch it, it's completely illogical, but it's just, that's what it is. And I guess, and it's what we talked about before, I just can't, like, nothing that's happening in WWE right now as far as the nonsensical nature of it, nothing is new. Like, I just can't fathom, I guess everybody reaches their breaking points at different times, but like, you can't be surprised by this stuff at this point. Like, if you're choosing to watch it and to dedicate your time and your money and your emotional energy to it, like, buyer beware at a certain point.
It kills me on WOL. It kills me. It's like,
if you don't like it that much, like, again, I'm not saying this as a defense of the product. I don't like it, so I don't watch it.
You don't watch. And that's it. You don't talk about not watching. You don't bitch about it and say how it's killing you. I mean, it just shows you how many, it's like, I don't know what people's love lives are like. If you're doing this with S&M, because you shouldn't be doing this. Is this all of your entertainment like this? Do you love to be beaten to death? Do you love pain when you watch this stuff? Do you love bitching about it? And I know people love hearing Brian bitch about it. And look, with Observer Live, that's what people, unfortunately, the WWE drives everything. Not that I'm happy about that.
It does, but that also even feels like to an extent it's changing. Not in a massive way, but in a, like, just in the sense that I feel like every other time period, at least since I've been alive in pro wrestling, the wrestling business has gone almost exclusively as WWE goes. And when interest in WWE is down, interest in pro wrestling is down across the board. Meanwhile, we're in a situation now where
they're less pro wrestling than ever, so it affects in some ways them less. Pro wrestling is going to build the next pro wrestling fans, that's for sure.
They're the industry leader by a wide margin, yet the product is stagnant. Obviously they're making money. That's through the TV deals. Like the other metrics are down, and yet pretty much every other sector of pro wrestling is up in interest. Japan is up in interest. The indies are massively up in interest. The scene in the UK, throughout Europe and Australia is at a place that at least I don't ever recall seeing it that hot before.
Well, that's the thing. Usually, if we've been down,
very different time period.
Well, if we've been down, Japan has been up, or if Mexico has been, or something. But it just seems like everybody's up right now.
Yeah.
Except for WWE, whose profits are up so high that makes up for it in some ways. But yeah, I mean, as pro wrestling is definitely going to build the next set of pro wrestling fans, because it ain't going to be WWE. Because that's one of the problems that they have. And again, yes, do pro wrestlers, quote unquote, graduate to sports entertainment sooner or later? Yes. Is there a level of entertainment that it's got all over the indies? Of course there is. But it's still wrestling there. No matter if you like some of the styles like that or not, it's still pro wrestling. And, it's going to be the promotions like Nova in Northern Virginia that like a kid goes to. I mean, yes, WWE is going to be the thing, but like, I mean, how many? I don't know. I see it, and I don't want to use my kid and his friends and stuff like that as the only example. But when like nobody cares, like they'll know some guys and they'll like kind of be interested for a second when it's on, but like when so many kids just don't care. And it's like, kids are falling asleep at shows, and it's just like, the parents are wearing more merch than the kids and seem like they care more. It's not good. It's not like it's going to make or break WWE right now, but
not right now, but at a certain point.
But I see
at a certain, and again, I draw parallels to other, like, at a certain point, that will come back to haunt you. Maybe it's 20 years from now, maybe it's 30 years from now, but you can't keep doing this forever and expect that it's not going to have some sort of tangible effect down the line.
Exactly. And the local and small promotions all over the country, and smaller promotions, again, whether they are quote unquote super indies like PWG, and that's a bad example, but like, AAW, and again, I'm going off of their companies' all access shows, not just the bar shows where only, a certain age can get in. But like, all of these promotions that are all over the place that are, boots on the ground that are feeling, the trickle down effect of everybody's enthusiasm, that's what cultivates a wrestling fan. I think almost all of us, there are very few of us that came into this game at 20, I became a wrestling fan at fucking 4 or whatever it was, like it's just been there. I mean, you're the same way. Most of the people on this website, the same way, it's just, that's how you create your fans. You got it. It's wrestling is like any other fucking form of entertainment. That's what the NFL is so worried about. If you can't hook them young, you can't keep them in. And they have concern over that. Wrestling and every other part of entertainment like that, that's the same way. This is something you pass on, and it's something you get into from an early age, like a comic book or any of that sort of stuff.
Yes, I cannot dispute any of that. We should still probably talk about what ended up being the biggest show this entire time period, since we did the last show, and then we'll close it out. Wrestling Dontaku Night 2, May 4th, Fukuoka. The night before was just sort of a show, 2/3 full house. I mean, it was not main evented by Kota Ibushi and Cody and Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. It was fine. Both those matches were good, but it really doesn't a whole lot doesn't need to be said about that. Show on the 4th, though. Top 2 matches. Will Ospreay and Kushida. Okada and Tanahashi. We talked about the tag matches, that on this tour, late in this tour, that led into this into these matches. But good God, I mean, Ospreay and Kushida was really, really good. There's no doubt that it would be. They're milking the Ospreay neck injury for all it's worth, and it's making his matches even more dramatic than they otherwise would be. Kushida, I feel like every time we see him in one of these matches, you just get even more of an appreciation for how versatile the guy is. Like, he's equal parts like Hiroshi Tanahashi and Will Ospreay, just in the sense of he's so good at working guys over. He's so good at adjusting mid-match to like, oh, well, if I need to kind of be the heel based on the crowd reaction and how they feel about the other guy, in match I can do that. Great submission wrestler, but then he can also bust out like a springboard top rope Rana just as well as any other high-flying guy. So that was fantastic. But, man, the main event, Mike, I don't know if I'm overselling this. I guess I haven't read it. I mean, other than just while the match is going on and reading the thread and people saying, oh my God, this was great. I haven't really read a whole lot of what people are saying in, comparison to other matches this year or to their other matches. But man, just in terms of in-ring execution and just the emotional investment and the build through, all the matches they've had going back to 2012 to now, I don't think I've seen a better match this year, at least. It was fantastic. These people wanted these 6,030, or I guess what was it, 6,307 in the building?
Oh, I didn't know what it was.
Desperately wanted Hiroshi Tanahashi to win this match. I did as well. There were people in the crowd. Multiple times they showed people in the crowd crying. Tanahashi was crying in post-match backstage. Okada was just incredible in this match. It's just all the subtle things, throughout this tour. How much he dominated Tanahashi in a lot of ways throughout this tour. He really, leading up to this match, was very dismissive of Tanahashi. And then, you get into this match, and Tanahashi is just incredible. But also, there's so many things that played on previous matches, and then also I've seen other people describe Tanahashi, in this match as sort of the old gunslinger with one more chance. But it was so great as far as it seemed to me, at least, his desperation to not get hit with the Rainmaker in this match. Like, the idea going into it was that he knew that if he gets hit with one Rainmaker, that's all he can take at this point in his career. It's not going to be like before. It's not going to be like, he can kick out of it. Like, he had to avoid getting hit by the Rainmaker. And I love that. As much as, part of me would have loved to have seen him kick out, just go a couple more minutes, just that this time, all it took after all that, after 34.5 minutes, was one Rainmaker and it put Tanahashi down. It was the perfect story. And I guess before I stop talking and hand it over to you, I can't remember who said this on Twitter, but just the sheer utter selflessness of Hiroshi Tanahashi, in that he has spent pretty much the entirety of the prime or most of the prime of his career making another guy and establishing a guy that can lead the company to greater heights than even he was able to. That's not necessarily a normal thing in this business.
Well, he can't help but be great. Be great at everything. And
he's the greatest wrestler that I've seen in the 35 years. Well, I'm just turned 37, so we'll say the 34 years that I've been watching pro wrestling. I'm completely comfortable saying that Hiroshi Tanahashi is the greatest wrestler I've ever seen.
He's right there. He is right there. And
what he's doing now, with what he did in the run-up to this match and what he did in this match, with what he's been through physically in his entire career, and particularly over the last couple of years, it's insane.
It is, and he, probably dumb, and that he probably should be, he really probably shouldn't even be wrestling right now, as far as the injuries and things like that. But it was talked about a bad way to end the story with Naito and Suzuki earlier on. It was the best way you could have went out, and it was not as incredibly dramatic, but you know what? That's not how it works in wrestling, because at some point you get a little bit older and it takes a little bit less to beat you than it did.
Well, it's just it's sorry to jump in, but I go back to, think of Chuck Liddell's last couple fights where technically, he looked great, but it just, he couldn't take the punch. He got tagged right on the chin and he'd go out. And that was Hiroshi Tanahashi in this match.
Circle of life, man. You start this thing in diapers. Sooner or later, if you live long enough, you'll be ending it in diapers too, drooling all over yourself. And that's how it works with the wrestling business. At least that's how it's supposed to work. When your star has peaked to its, most, shiniest potential, and you're going to stay around. It's your job to get them ready. And it's not like Okada needed Tanahashi to do anything. Now, storyline-wise, if you stayed close to it, obviously it's good that he gets the crown and gets that final period at the end of the sentence, even though he's already defeated him and all that stuff, Apparently on the English commentary, and I didn't hear it, but Don Callis was, I won't say beating it to death, but it was very heavy in the shows, was about how Okada still needing to escape Tanahashi's shadow, and I didn't hear it, so I don't.
No, he did a very good job. Just
it was good. It wasn't just like a, No,
I really liked it. I thought the build up on the English commentary side was, again, talking about Okada talking about how he viewed Tanahashi, and then all in terms of like at both points of their careers, and then just really referencing the crowds, just how much people were dying to see Tanahashi win, and that no matter how much success Okada has, that he doesn't have that, and they were playing up like a jealousy angle. On that level, and I thought it worked. I thought it added to the story that was being told in the ring.
Okay, yeah, I'd have to hear it. He was playing that aspect of it, hard. So, that was there, and it's just nice to be able to have that completion of that story. And Okada and this next generation, I mean, for like what you said about Tanahashi, some people like Brian have already said it about Okada, and I am sure. In fact, many people have said it about Okada, and they'll probably be saying it again after next year's Dome show, that Okada might be the greatest wrestler of their generation.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to dispute that with you. And they're
I can't either.
Him,
but
and that was that's how you can shit all over Geto for lots of things, but don't make shit up about him. That doesn't need to be. There's enough stuff you can point out and criticize that you don't need to make anything up to do it. And
they get the important stuff. The majority of the important stuff they get right at a rate that no other wrestling promotion in the modern era can come close to.
Absolutely, whether it be Naito and Tanahashi, whether it be Naito and Okada, and that story is still going on and being told right now. Whether it be Tanahashi, Nakamura, whether it be Nakamura and AJ Styles, Kenny Omega. All of these combinations have all been top tier, whether you've loved it, throughout. Their main stuff has been always, for the most part, on point, and is always delivered and given you, at least, giving you enough of your money's worth. Even if you didn't love it, you can't go away saying that they didn't try for you. And boy, Tanahashi, yeah, I mean, because now this is look, he could win the title again for all we know, but like this is the official downslide of Hiroshi Tanahashi. It'll be interesting to see how long he stays on. Does he take time off at some point? An extended period of time. And I'm not saying now. I'm saying within 18 months or something like that. Do we see, what are we going to see from him going forward, and how is Team New Japan? Because look, that's one thing I think they could stand to shake up, or some of the factions. I think, forward looking. I'm not saying right this second, but forward looking on some of these factions. But at some point, somebody's going to have to hold, that flag for Team New Japan, and it's not going to be Elgin. It's not going to be Juice per se. It's not going to be Taguchi. It's not going to be lots of guys. But who is it going to be? Is it going to be, because it looks like Ospreay as far as like, juniors and things like that, but like, who is it going to be?
Well, Ospreay's Chaos, so if you're talking
that's right, he is Chaos, yeah, so it's like, who's going to be that next guy for New Japan that can fill that Tanahashi role?
Yeah, I mean, it's, and just sort of talking about that with Tanahashi and New Japan, I think I look at it's the combination of everything. The in-ring, the incredible matches he's had, how he's done it through the injuries for so long. And then I think as time goes by, we're going to look at Hiroshi Tanahashi as an even more important figure historically than we already do, in the sense that if Hiroshi Tanahashi did not exist, where would New Japan be right now? And if New Japan did not have the renaissance and the resurgence that it had, where would the rest of the pro wrestling business be right now? I think it's a really valid question, and I think it's something that I just hope that as we move forward, that as things continue ostensibly to continue moving forward and getting bigger and bigger for New Japan, with Okada at the helm and whoever else ends up being there with them over the next 5 years or so, just that the overwhelming importance of Hiroshi Tanahashi, his performances, his story, that doesn't get lost as well. But we should close it out, I guess, by mentioning that, yeah, they also dropped a little bit of big news in the sense that coming up June 9th, which we'll have a lot of time to talk about that before then, but they're going to do Okada and Omega 2 out of 3 falls, no time limit. That's pretty cool.
I want everyone to give me their ideas, whether they think they'll do it or not. How do you get out of that without a title change?
They're not getting out of it without a title change.
I know.
Kenny Omega's winning the title.
I want to know if somebody can come up with some creative, like something that they saw back on like a Mid-South tape from before they were Mid-South, and it was Tri-State in 1977, and it was in Shreveport, and Ernie Ladd did some crazy shit with Carl Cox and Bill Watts, and like, you know, some Eddie Graham learning tree shit, like a finish that we haven't seen in forever. Because again, this just for my own personal amusement. How do you get out of this thing with a win apiece, with no time limit? How do you get out of it? Double DQ, yeah, you could do that, but that's just cheap. We need a more.
You can't do that. You can't just casually throw out. You could do that. You can't do that.
Well, if you were WWE, you could do that. You just have them kick each other in the nuts and then roll on to the next thing.
Well, on that note, I think we should close it out, Mike. And we will next show. By the way, we will get into in much more depth the Best of the Super Junior tournament. The full roster was announced. There's some exciting additions. Chris Sabin being thrown in there is fun. Should be great, but we've got a little bit of time still, at least a week or so. I guess we'll do a show next week, and we'll touch on that before. I believe the opening day is the 18th.
Rambling for me, but, you know.
Yeah, a little bit.
One should be surprised from that, but two, this was very cathartic after the last couple of days, okay? Very, very much. And I know no one's going to be able to hear this, but still, this was good for me.
I'm glad.
Thanks.
All right, then. We will talk to you technology and website willing soon.
After we get Benadryl.